we're witnessing something that shouldn't be possible. On November 15th, 2025, amateur astronomers in the Canary Islands pointed their telescope at an object that has been defying explanation for months. What they captured in their spectral data has left the scientific community scrambling for answers that simply don't exist in any textbook. This isn't just another unusual comet observation. This is data that breaks the fundamental rules of how matter behaves in space, and the implications of what we're seeing extend far beyond a single mysterious visitor from another star system. If you've been following the strange case of 3I Atlas, you know this interstellar object has been challenging our understanding since the moment it was discovered. But what happened on that night in November has taken the mystery to an entirely new level. The spectral readings that came back were so contradictory to established physics that multiple teams have been frantically rechecking their equipment, convinced something must be wrong. Nothing is wrong with the equipment. Something is wrong with our understanding. Before we dive into the mind-bending data that's causing heated debates in astronomy departments worldwide, make sure you're subscribed because this story is developing rapidly. New observations are coming in weekly, and each one seems to deepen the puzzle rather than solve it. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any updates on what might be the most significant astronomical discovery of our generation. Let me paint the picture of what should have been a routine observation. The team in the Canary Islands was conducting standard spectroscopic analysis of 3I Atlas, using wavelengths between 628 and 680 nanometers. This is bread and butter astronomy. You point your spectrograph at a comet, capture the light it's reflecting and emitting, and the resulting spectrum tells you what materials are present. It's like taking a fingerprint of the object's composition. For months, teams around the world had been getting increasingly puzzling results from 3I Atlas. The object would appear active one day, shooting jets of material into space, then appear completely dormant the next. It would glow with an eerie green light that suggested specific chemistry, then show no trace of that chemistry in spectral analysis. Every observation seemed to contradict the previous one, but what the Canary Islands team captured on November 15th was different. It wasn't contradictory or puzzling, it was impossible. The spectrum came back perfectly smooth, a gentle red slope indicating nothing but dust particles reflecting sunlight. No peaks, no valleys, no molecular signatures whatsoever. Just the featureless whisper of microscopic grains scattering light exactly as you'd expect from a dead, inert object. Now, if you've never looked at a comet spectrum before, let me explain why this is so significant. Active comets are spectroscopic gold mines. When ice sublimates from their surfaces, it creates a zoo of molecular signatures. You see cyanogen emissions, carbon compounds, water vapor byproducts. The spectrum lights up with dozens of distinct features that tell you exactly what's boiling off the nucleus and how fast it's happening. 3I Atlas had been showing signs of activity for weeks. Telescopes had captured images of structured jets erupting from its surface. The object was glowing green, a colour that in comets typically indicates the presence of diatomic carbon molecules fluorescing under solar radiation. Everything about its behaviour suggested an active outgassing comet. Yet the spectrum showed absolutely nothing. No gas signatures, no emission lines, no absorption features, just dust. The team ran every calibration check they could think of. They pointed their instrument at Vega to verify it was working correctly. They measured known spectral lines to confirm their wavelength accuracy. Everything checked out perfectly. Their equipment was functioning exactly as it should. They looked at 3I Atlas again. Same result. Smooth, featureless, dust-only spectrum. Here's where this gets truly bizarre. Less than 24 hours after this spectrum was recorded, the SLU telescope network captured images showing 3I Atlas, surrounded by brilliant structured plumes of material. 3 distinct jets, symmetric and powerful, blasting dust and gas into space with the kind of intensity you'd expect from a comet in full eruption. Think about what this means. The spectroscopy said the object was completely inactive, essentially dead. The imaging said it was one of the most active objects in the sky. Both observations were taken by professional astronomers using calibrated equipment. Both results have been verified and cross-checked. Both cannot be true. This is where the laws of physics start breaking down. In comet science, there are rules that have held for centuries. Jets require volatiles. Volatiles produce gas. Gas shows up in spectra. It's a chain of cause and effect as reliable as gravity itself. You cannot have powerful structured jets without the chemistry to drive them. It would be like watching a car race down a highway, while its fuel gauge reads empty, and there's no engine under the hood. The contradiction has sparked intense debate in the astronomical community. Some researchers are questioning whether we're dealing with entirely new physics. Others are suggesting that 3I Atlas represents a class of object we've never encountered before. A few are quietly asking whether we might be looking at something that isn't entirely natural. That last possibility is what's keeping some scientists awake at night. Remember, 3I Atlas is only the third confirmed interstellar object we've ever detected. The first was Oumuamua, which accelerated in ways that couldn't be explained by conventional comet physics. The second was Borisov, which behaved normally and restored faith that interstellar visitors would follow predictable patterns. 3I Atlas has shattered that faith completely. What we're seeing challenges everything we thought we understood about how small bodies behave in space. The object appears to cycle between completely different states of activity. Sometimes it's shooting jets that would make Halley's Comet jealous. Sometimes it's spectroscopically indistinguishable from a dead rock. The timing of these transitions doesn't correlate with anything we can identify. Not distance from the sun, not rotational period, not solar wind conditions. The object seems to operate on its own mysterious schedule, switching between active and inactive states in ways that defy conventional comet physics. The spectral data from November 15th represents the most extreme example of this contradiction yet recorded. An object that looked completely dead, producing some of the most organized jet activity ever documented in a comet. The jets themselves are another puzzle. Natural comet jets are typically chaotic affairs. Different regions of the surface heat at different rates, creating irregular bursts of gas and dust that twist and wobble as the nucleus rotates. What you get is organic unpredictability, the kind of beautiful chaos that characterizes natural processes. 3I Atlas produces jets that are almost artificially precise, 3 symmetrically spaced plumes extending from the nucleus like the arms of a carefully designed pinwheel. The structures maintain their shape and orientation over hours, showing a level of organization that makes astronomers deeply uncomfortable. Symmetry in nature usually tells a story about formation or structure. It suggests underlying constraints or forces that shape the final result. But the kind of symmetry we're seeing in 3I Atlas's jets typically requires either very specific physical conditions or deliberate engineering. The scientific community is struggling with this reality. Every natural explanation requires invoking increasingly exotic conditions, hidden internal structures, electromagnetic effects we've never observed in comets, charged dust dynamics operating in regimes we haven't modelled. Meanwhile, the alternative explanation sits there like an elephant in the room, an explanation that would account for the symmetry, the precise timing, the ability to switch between states on command. Nobody wants to say it out loud yet, but the possibility is becoming harder to ignore with each new observation. What makes this even more significant is that 3I Atlas isn't operating in isolation. This year has been remarkable for astronomical anomalies across multiple fields. Quantum gravity experiments producing unexplained frequency drifts, artificial intelligence systems discovering atmospheric patterns on exoplanets that shouldn't exist according to our chemistry models, deep-sea drilling projects finding life at depths that should be impossible. It's as if 2025 has become the year when our understanding of what's possible started showing cracks. The spectral data from November 15th might be the most dramatic crack yet. It's forcing us to confront the possibility that our models of how the universe works are incomplete in ways we never suspected. As 3I Atlas continues its journey through our solar system, every new observation adds another layer to the mystery instead of resolving it. The object is currently moving away from the sun, growing fainter with each passing week. Within months, it will be too dim to study with anything but the largest telescopes on Earth. The window for understanding what we're looking at is closing rapidly. And based on the November 15th data, we might be running out of time to solve one of the most important puzzles in the history of astronomy. The implications of what happened on November 15th extend far beyond a single confusing spectrum, because when you start examining the broader pattern of 3I Atlas observations, a disturbing picture emerges. This isn't just an object that occasionally behaves strangely. This is an object that seems to operate under completely different rules than anything we've encountered before. Let me walk you through what makes the spectral contradiction so profound. When astronomers look at active comets, they expect to see specific molecular signatures. Water vapor breaking down under solar radiation produces hydroxyl radicals that emit at very predictable wavelengths. Carbon compounds create distinctive emission lines. These aren't subtle effects that require sophisticated analysis to detect. They're bright, obvious features that jump out of spectral data like neon signs. The November 15th spectrum from 3i Atlas showed none of this. Zero. Complete absence of any chemical activity whatsoever. Yet within hours, multiple independent observatories were documenting jet activity so intense it looked like the object had suddenly come alive. This creates a paradox that violates basic physics. The energy required to blast material off a comet's surface has to come from somewhere. In normal comets, that energy comes from sublimation. Ice turns to gas, expands rapidly, and carries dust along with it. The process is messy but predictable. Gas always accompanies dust in these eruptions. 3i Atlas apparently found a way to skip the gas entirely. Some researchers have proposed that we're seeing delayed outgassing effects. Maybe volatile materials were released days or weeks earlier, and we're just now seeing the dust that got carried along. But this explanation falls apart when you look at the timing. The jet activity correlates too closely with the spectroscopic observations. We're not seeing ancient gas signatures, we're seeing real-time contradictions. Others have suggested that 3i Atlas might be composed of materials we've never encountered before. Exotic ices that don't produce detectable gas signatures when they sublimate. Charged. Dust that can be ejected through electromagnetic forces rather than gas pressure. These ideas push the boundaries of known chemistry, but they're at least theoretically possible. The problem is that each new observation adds another layer of impossibility to explain away. Take the colour changes, for instance. Throughout its passage through our solar system, 3i Atlas has shifted through a sequence of distinct hues. First red, indicating radiation-processed organic compounds on its surface. Then green, suggesting diatomic carbon molecules fluorescing under solar light. Then blue, indicating ionized gases interacting with the solar wind. Each colour change should correspond to different chemical processes happening on or around the object. Red suggests aged surface materials. Green requires active carbon chemistry. Blue needs ionized gas clouds. These aren't subtle variations that could be explained by measurement errors or atmospheric effects. They're dramatic shifts that tell specific stories about what's happening to the object. But when you look for the chemistry that should produce these colours, it's not there. The green glow persists even when spectroscopic analysis shows no trace of the carbon compounds that create green emission in other comets. The blue phases occur without detectable ionized gas signatures. It's as if 3i Atlas is putting on a light show using mechanisms that don't exist in our textbooks. The jet behaviour adds another impossible element to the puzzle. Natural comet jets follow predictable patterns based on solar heating and nuclear rotation. As different faces of the comet turn toward the sun, different regions become active. You get irregular timing, chaotic directions, and constantly changing intensity as the object tumbles through space. 3i Atlas produces jets that maintain their positions relative to the nucleus over extended periods. When they appear, they emerge from the same locations. When they shut off, they all shut off together. When they restart in the same configuration. This kind of coordinated behaviour requires either internal structure we've never seen in natural objects or active control systems managing the release of material. The radio observations make things even stranger. Some teams have detected weak hydroxyl signatures at specific times, suggesting the presence of water vapour breakdown products, but these detections are maddeningly inconsistent. One observatory will see clear evidence of OH radicals, while another observatory, using similar equipment and observing at nearly the same time, detects nothing. It's as if the object is selectively revealing different aspects of itself to different observers. Sometimes it shows gas signatures, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it's active, sometimes it's dormant. The pattern seems almost deliberately designed to prevent any single team from getting a complete picture of what's happening. This observer-dependent behaviour is unprecedented in comet science. Comets are supposed to be consistent. They follow the laws of physics regardless of who's looking at them or when the observation takes place. They don't customize their behavior based on the capabilities of the telescope pointed in their direction. Yet that's exactly what 3i Atlas appears to be doing. The magnetic field measurements add yet another layer of mystery. Some spacecraft instruments have detected unusual magnetic signatures in the vicinity of 3i Atlas, suggesting the object might be interacting with the solar wind in ways that typical comets don't. Charged dust clouds can create localized magnetic effects, but the patterns being recorded don't match any known models of dust-plasma interactions. Instead, they look more like the signatures you'd expect from structured magnetic fields, the kind produced by engineered systems rather than random collections of charged particles. Temperature measurements provide another contradiction. Infrared observations show that 3i Atlas maintains a surprisingly uniform surface temperature even as it moves through different regions of the solar system. Most comets show dramatic temperature variations as they approach and recede from the Sun. Different faces heat and cool as they rotate. Active regions run hotter than inactive ones. 3i Atlas maintains thermal stability that suggests either unusual material properties or internal heat sources that don't depend on solar warming. The trajectory analysis reveals additional anomalies. While the object follows a hyperbolic path that clearly marks it as an interstellar visitor, small deviations from predicted positions suggest non-gravitational forces acting on it. These could be explained by asymmetric outgassing, but only if there's actual outgassing occurring. The spectroscopic data says there isn't, so we're left with an object that changes course without apparent cause, maintains temperature without obvious heat sources, produces jets without detectable gas, and glows in colors that don't match its chemistry. Every single aspect of 3i Atlas behavior contradicts established comet physics. The scientific community is struggling to process these contradictions because they challenge fundamental assumptions about how small bodies work. For centuries, astronomers have built models based on the idea that comets are passive objects responding predictably to their environment. Heat them up and they outgaze, spin them and they wobble, hit them with solar wind and they develop tails. 3i Atlas seems to operate under its own rules, responding to triggers we can't identify, through mechanisms we don't understand. This has led some researchers to propose that we're witnessing entirely new physics. Maybe objects that spend millions of years in interstellar space develop properties that don't exist in solar system materials. Maybe the extreme conditions of interstellar travel create structures and behaviors that our Earth-based models never anticipated. These are reasonable hypotheses that deserve investigation, but they require invoking exotic conditions and unknown processes to explain what we're seeing. Meanwhile, there's another explanation that accounts for all the observed behaviors without requiring new physics or exotic materials. An explanation that most scientists are reluctant to discuss publicly because of the implications. The possibility that 3i Atlas contains engineered components. This doesn't mean little green aliens piloting a spacecraft. It means asking whether some of the object's behaviors might be explained by assuming it contains structures that were designed rather than formed through natural processes. Structures that might now be inactive, degraded, or functioning in ways we don't recognize, but structures nonetheless. The symmetric jet configuration would make sense if they were positioned deliberately rather than randomly. The coordinated on-off behavior would be expected if there were control mechanisms managing material release. The observer-dependent variations would be understandable if the object were responding to external conditions through programmed responses. Even the spectroscopic contradictions would be explainable if the object were designed to appear natural from most observation angles, while occasionally revealing more complex behaviors under specific conditions. This hypothesis explains every anomaly we've documented. It accounts for the contradictions, the symmetries, the coordinated behaviors, and the apparent intelligence behind the timing of various activities. It also requires accepting that we're looking at technology from another civilization. The evidence isn't definitive. Each individual anomaly could potentially be explained through exotic but natural processes. But when you consider all the contradictions together, when you look at the full pattern of impossible behaviors, the artificial hypothesis starts to seem less speculative and more necessary. We're rapidly approaching a point where we'll need to make a choice. Either we accept that our understanding of comet physics is so incomplete that we've missed entire categories of natural behavior, or we seriously consider that 3i Atlas might be showing us our first clear evidence of extraterrestrial technology. The November 15th spectral data might be the tipping point that forces that decision. Because what we recorded that night doesn't just challenge our models, It breaks them completely. And breaking points in science are where the most important discoveries happen. Discoveries happen. The most unsettling aspect of the November 15th data isn't what it shows. It's what it reveals about the limitations of our observation methods. Because when multiple teams started comparing notes on their 3i Atlas observations, a pattern emerged that nobody wanted to acknowledge. The object's behavior appears to be wavelength dependent. Teams observing invisible light consistently report the featureless dust spectrum we've been discussing. Clean, smooth, nothing but reflected sunlight bouncing off microscopic particles. But teams using radio telescopes occasionally detect hydroxyl signatures. Infrared observations sometimes show thermal anomalies. Ultraviolet measurements hint at chemistry that visible light spectra say doesn't exist. It's as if 3i Atlas is showing different faces to different types of observation, revealing just enough information to keep astronomers guessing while never providing a complete picture. This selective revelation is unprecedented in small-body astronomy. Natural objects don't discriminate between observation methods. A comet-producing gas should show signatures across multiple wavelengths simultaneously. Water vapor creates hydroxyl radicals detectable in radio. Carbon compounds fluoresce in visible light, while also showing up in infrared. The chemistry is connected. The signatures should correlate. With 3i Atlas, they don't. Radio detections occur when visible light shows nothing. Infrared anomalies appear while radio telescopes detect silence. It's like watching a symphony orchestra, where each section plays a completely different piece of music, yet somehow the result sounds coordinated. The wavelength selectivity has forced astronomers to question whether they're observing a single coherent object or something more complex. Maybe 3i Atlas isn't a traditional comet nucleus surrounded by a uniform coma. Maybe it's a composite structure with different components active at different times, responsive to different types of electromagnetic radiation. This model could explain some of the contradictions. If the object contains regions of different composition, different electrical properties, different responses to solar heating, then different observation methods might be sampling different parts of a heterogeneous system. But even this explanation struggles with the coordination problem. The different components would need to be organized in ways that produce the symmetric jet patterns we've documented. They'd need to activate and deactivate in synchronized sequences. They'd need to maintain consistent orientations despite the object's motion through space. That level of organization pushes the boundaries of what we consider naturally possible. The European Space Agency's solar observation satellites have provided another piece of the puzzle. During 3i Atlas's closest approach to the Sun, instruments designed to monitor solar-wind interactions detected magnetic field perturbations in the object's vicinity. Not the chaotic disturbances you'd expect from a cloud of charged dust, but structured patterns that suggest organized magnetic fields. These measurements are difficult to interpret because we've never seen anything like them from a comet. The magnetic signatures don't match our models of how solar wind interacts with outgassing volatiles. They look more like the patterns produced when solar wind encounters artificial magnetic fields. The timing of these magnetic anomalies correlates with the jet activity cycles. When 3i Atlas produces its symmetric plumes, the magnetic measurements show organized structure. When the jets disappear, the magnetic signatures become chaotic or vanish entirely. This correlation suggests that whatever mechanism controls the jets also influences the local magnetic environment. In natural comets, magnetic effects are typically byproducts of gas ionization and dust charging. They're secondary consequences of the primary sublimation process. With 3i Atlas, the magnetic signatures appear to be primary phenomena that might actually be controlling the material ejection rather than resulting from it. The implications of this reversal are staggering. It suggests that electromagnetic forces, not thermal sublimation, might be the driving mechanism behind the object's activity. That would explain why spectroscopic observations show no gas while imaging reveals powerful jets. The material isn't being blown off by expanding vapors, it's being ejected by electromagnetic forces. This electromagnetic propulsion model has gained support from plasma physicists who've been following the 3i Atlas observations. They point out that charged dust particles can be accelerated to high velocities by relatively modest electric fields. If the object somehow maintains charge separation across its structure, it could function like a massive electrostatic accelerator. The challenge is explaining how such charge separation could be maintained in the harsh environment of interstellar space, then activated when the object enters a solar system. Natural processes that could create and preserve such electrical configurations are extremely rare and require very specific conditions. Engineered systems, on the other hand, are specifically designed to maintain charge separation and release it in controlled ways. The recent analysis of 3I Atlas's rotation has revealed another anomaly that's been quietly circulating through the astronomical community. Most comets have detectable rotation periods. They tumble predictably as they move through space, and this rotation shows up clearly in brightness variations and spectroscopic measurements. 3I Atlas doesn't appear to rotate normally, or rather, it rotates in ways that don't follow the patterns established by every other small body we've studied. The brightness variations don't show the regular periodicity you'd expect from a tumbling object. Instead, they show complex patterns that suggest either very unusual shape dynamics or active orientation control. Active orientation control would require internal mechanisms capable of adjusting the object's spin. In spacecraft design, this is accomplished using reaction wheels, gyroscopes, or thruster systems. All require engineering and energy sources. The possibility that 3I Atlas is maintaining deliberate orientation has profound implications for interpreting its other behaviors. If the object can control its rotation, it can control which face points toward the Sun at any given time. It can control the timing of jet activation. It can control what aspects of its structure are visible to Earth-based observers. This would explain the observer-dependent phenomena that have been frustrating research teams for months. The object isn't randomly revealing different properties to different telescopes. It's selectively showing different aspects of itself based on criteria we don't understand. The selective revelation hypothesis has led some researchers to propose that 3I Atlas might be designed to avoid detection or classification. If you wanted to send a probe through another civilization's solar system without immediately revealing its artificial nature, you'd want it to look as natural as possible to casual observation while retaining the capability to perform more complex behaviors when necessary. Such a design would explain why most observations show featureless dust spectra, while occasional measurements detect organized magnetic fields and coordinated jet activity. The object would spend most of its time in stealth mode, appearing to be nothing more than an interstellar debris fragment. Only under specific conditions would it reveal its more sophisticated capabilities. This stealth hypothesis is deeply unsettling because it implies intentional deception. Not malicious deception necessarily, but deliberate concealment of the object's true nature from outside observers. The radio silence adds another layer to this interpretation. Despite months of monitoring by radio telescopes around the world, 3I Atlas has never produced the kind of structured radio emissions you might expect from an active technological system. No periodic signals, no modulated transmissions, no obvious attempts at communication. This silence could indicate that the object is inactive, damaged, or operating under protocols that prohibit transmission while in foreign solar systems. It could also suggest that any communication systems it might possess operate at frequencies or in ways that our current monitoring systems aren't designed to detect. The absence of radio signals doesn't prove the object is natural any more than their presence would prove it's artificial. But the silence does fit with the hypothesis of a probe designed to remain undetected during its passage through inhabited systems. The dust composition analysis has provided additional puzzles. While the overall spectrum appears featureless, high-resolution measurements have detected trace amounts of isotopes that don't match solar system norms. These isotopic signatures are subtle, requiring sophisticated analysis to identify, but they're definitely present. The isotopic ratios suggest formation in a stellar environment significantly different from our own solar system. This is expected for an interstellar visitor, but the specific patterns detected in 3I Atlas are unusual even by interstellar standards. They hint at formation conditions that don't match our models of normal stellar nuclear synthesis. Some of the detected isotopes are extremely rare in natural processes, but could be byproducts of artificial nuclear reactions. The concentrations are too low to be definitive, but they're consistent with what you might expect from advanced materials that incorporate synthetic elements. The trajectory refinements have revealed another troubling detail. As more precise measurements accumulate, it's becoming clear that 3I Atlas's path through our solar system isn't entirely ballistic. Small course corrections appear to be occurring at irregular intervals, adjustments too small to be obvious, but too consistent to be random measurement errors. These trajectory modifications could result from asymmetric outgassing, but only if there's actual outgassing occurring in the directions required to produce the observed changes. The spectroscopic data continues to show no evidence of such gas release. The alternative explanation is that 3i Atlas is making deliberate course adjustments using propulsion methods that don't produce detectable exhaust signatures. This would require technology significantly more advanced than our current spacecraft systems, but it would explain the trajectory anomalies without invoking invisible gas jets. As 3i Atlas continues moving away from the Sun, the window for detailed observation is rapidly closing. The object is already too faint for small telescopes, and will soon be beyond the reach of all but the largest observatories on Earth. Within 6 months, it will be essentially unobservable, carrying its secrets back into the darkness between stars. This time pressure is adding urgency to the scientific debate about how to interpret the accumulated observations. Some researchers are pushing for definitive statements about the object's natural origin, arguing that exotic but natural explanations can account for all the anomalies if we're willing to expand our understanding of comet physics. Others are advocating for more open discussion of artificial hypotheses, pointing out that the evidence for engineered components is becoming increasingly difficult to dismiss through purely natural explanations. The November 15th spectral data has become the focal point of this debate because it represents the starkest contradiction yet recorded. An object that appears spectroscopically dead while simultaneously producing some of the most organized activity patterns ever documented in a small body. The contradiction isn't subtle. It isn't something that could be explained by measurement uncertainties or calibration errors. It's a fundamental violation of the cause and effect relationships that govern comet behavior, and it's forcing the astronomical community to confront possibilities that most scientists never expected to face in their careers. The data from 3i Atlas isn't just challenging our understanding of comets, it's challenging our assumptions about what kinds of objects exist in the universe and what kinds of visitors we might expect from other star systems. Whether the final explanation turns out to be exotic physics, new classes of natural objects, or something even more paradigm-shifting, one thing is certain. The November 15th observations have opened a door that can't be closed again. We've seen something that shouldn't exist according to our current understanding, and once you've seen the impossible, you can never quite look at the universe the same way again. The green visitor from another star system has left us with questions that will outlive its brief passage through our neighbourhood. Questions about the nature of matter in extreme environments, about the diversity of objects drifting between the stars, and about whether we're prepared for what else might come calling from the cosmic darkness. 3i Atlas may be moving away from us, growing fainter with each passing night, but its legacy will endure in the form of those questions. Questions that demand answers we don't yet have and might not be ready for. The spectral data from November 15th will be analysed and reanalysed for years to come, but no amount of analysis can change what was recorded that night. The impossible became documented fact, preserved in digital files that will outlast all of us. And somewhere in that data, buried in wavelengths and frequencies and impossible contradictions, lies a truth that will reshape how we think about our place in the cosmos. We just haven't figured out how to read it yet. The timeline of 3i Atlas observations reads like a catalogue of impossibilities. Each new measurement seems designed specifically to contradict the previous one, building a case file that grows more bewildering with every entry. What started as routine monitoring of an interstellar visitor has evolved into something that's keeping entire research teams awake at night, questioning everything they thought they understood about how the universe works. The pattern that's emerged from months of observation is unlike anything in the astronomical record. Objects in space are supposed to be predictable. They follow laws, they behave consistently, they don't switch personalities based on who's looking or what instruments are being used. 3i Atlas apparently didn't get the memo. The December observations have added new layers to the mystery. As the object moves further from the Sun, its behavior should be stabilizing. Activity should be decreasing. The dramatic jets and color changes should be fading as solar heating diminishes. Instead, 3i Atlas has begun exhibiting what researchers are cautiously calling distance-independent activity. The term is deliberately neutral, but it describes something that shouldn't exist. Comet activity is driven by solar heating. The closer to the Sun, the more active. The further away, the more dormant. This relationship is so fundamental that it's used to predict comet behavior decades in advance. 3I Atlas is producing jets at distances where it should be completely inactive. The intensity hasn't diminished as predicted. If anything, some measurements suggest the activity has become more organized, more structured, as if the object is revealing capabilities it kept hidden during its closest approach to the Sun. This reverse behavior has prompted some researchers to propose that 3I Atlas operates on stored energy rather than real-time solar heating. The idea is that the object accumulated energy during its passage through the inner solar system and is now releasing it in controlled bursts as it moves away. But stored energy doesn't explain the organization. It doesn't account for the symmetric patterns or the coordinated timing. Natural energy storage and release mechanisms are chaotic by definition. They don't produce the kind of structured behaviors we're documenting. The latest spectroscopic measurements have revealed another impossibility. Teams using different instruments are now consistently getting different results, not just occasionally, as was happening before. It's as if 3I Atlas has decided to abandon any pretense of behaving like a normal object. Infrared telescopes are detecting thermal signatures that suggest internal heat sources. Radio observations are picking up organized emissions at frequencies that don't correspond to any known molecular transitions. Visible light spectroscopy continues to show nothing but dust, while ultraviolet measurements hint at chemistry that visible light says doesn't exist. The wavelength segregation has become so pronounced that some researchers are joking darkly about needing different theories for different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. But the joke reflects a deeper anxiety about what this selectivity might mean. Natural objects don't customize their emissions based on observation wavelength. The physics that creates infrared heat signatures is connected to the chemistry that produces visible light emissions. You can't have organized radio signals without the underlying processes that should be visible in other parts of the spectrum, unless the object is specifically designed to compartmentalize its emissions. Unless different systems are active at different wavelengths for reasons that have nothing to do with natural physics. The magnetic field measurements have become increasingly difficult to explain through conventional models. What started as subtle anomalies in solar-wind interactions has evolved into clear evidence of structured magnetic fields emanating from the object itself. These aren't the chaotic magnetic signatures you'd expect from charged dust or ionized gas. They're organized, coherent, and they pulse in patterns that suggest active generation rather than passive interaction with the solar environment. Magnetic field generation requires either massive electrical currents or permanent magnetic materials organized in specific configurations. Neither explanation fits with the dusty ice composition that visible light spectroscopy suggests for 3I Atlas. But both explanations would be consistent with engineered magnetic systems designed to interact with solar wind in controlled ways. The trajectory analysis has revealed something even more disturbing. The small course corrections that were initially dismissed as measurement uncertainty have been confirmed by multiple independent observations. 3I Atlas is definitely adjusting its path through space, making tiny modifications that accumulate into significant changes over time. The corrections aren't random. They follow patterns that suggest deliberate navigation rather than natural perturbations. The object appears to be making course adjustments that optimize its trajectory for continued observation from Earth, while simultaneously moving away from the Sun. This behavior implies awareness, not consciousness necessarily, but some kind of feedback system that monitors external conditions and adjusts behavior accordingly. Natural objects don't optimize their trajectories for observability by alien civilizations. Designed objects absolutely would. The dust composition analysis has revealed isotopic signatures that are becoming impossible to explain through natural stellar nucleosynthesis. The ratios are wrong for any known stellar environment. They suggest nuclear processes that don't occur in normal star formation or planetary system evolution. Some of the detected isotopes have half-lives too short for them to have survived a million-year journey through interstellar space. They should have decayed long ago, yet they're clearly present in the dust samples captured by high-resolution spectroscopy. This implies either that our understanding of nuclear decay is fundamentally flawed, or that these isotopes are being actively replenished by processes occurring within 3I Atlas itself. Natural processes that could maintain unstable isotope populations over geological timescales are essentially non-existent. Artificial processes designed to maintain specific isotopic signatures are well within the realm of advanced technology. The communication analysis has produced the most unsettling results of all. While 3i Atlas has never transmitted obvious radio signals, detailed analysis of its emissions reveals subtle modulations that don't appear in natural sources. The modulations are too weak to carry information in any conventional sense, but they show statistical patterns that suggest underlying structure. It's as if the object is producing carrier waves without modulating them with data, like a radio transmitter that's powered on but not actively broadcasting. The frequencies of these potential carrier waves don't correspond to any natural molecular transitions. They're at precisely the wavelengths that would be optimal for interstellar communication, accounting for galactic background noise and atmospheric absorption. This could be coincidence. The universe is full of electromagnetic radiation at every conceivable frequency. But the specific combination of frequencies detected from 3i Atlas matches theoretical models for optimal interstellar communication protocols. The timing analysis has revealed patterns that are statistically impossible to explain as random variation. The object's activity cycles show periodicities that don't correspond to any astronomical phenomenon, but do match mathematical sequences that appear in artificial systems. The intervals between major activity periods follow progressions that look suspiciously like engineered timing protocols. Not the chaotic, irregular patterns you'd expect from natural thermal cycles or structural failures, but the kind of organized sequences that suggest programmed behavior. Some researchers have begun referring to these patterns as digital signatures, though they're careful to use the term only in private conversations. The implications of finding digital-like patterns in an interstellar visitor are too significant to discuss openly without definitive proof. The surface mapping attempts have revealed another impossibility. Despite months of observation, no one has been able to definitively determine the shape or size of 3i Atlas's nucleus. The object appears to have variable geometry, looking different depending on viewing angle and observation wavelength. This shouldn't be possible. Solid objects have fixed shapes. They might appear different due to rotation or viewing perspective, but the underlying geometry should be consistent across all observation methods. 3i Atlas seems to violate this basic principle. Infrared observations suggest one shape. Visible light imaging implies another. Radio measurements hint at internal structure that doesn't match either external appearance. The variable geometry could indicate that we're not looking at a single solid object, but at some kind of dynamic system that reconfigures itself over time. Natural systems capable of such reconfiguration are extremely rare and require very specific physical conditions. Engineered systems designed for adaptability would show exactly this kind of variable geometry, reshaping themselves based on operational requirements or environmental conditions. The energy balance calculations have produced results that violate conservation laws. The amount of energy 3i Atlas is radiating in various wavelengths exceeds what it should be receiving from solar heating by several orders of magnitude. This energy excess has to come from somewhere. Internal radioactive decay could provide some additional energy, but not nearly enough to account for the observed radiation levels. Chemical energy storage is similarly inadequate. The only known processes that could provide sufficient energy are nuclear reactions or antimatter annihilation. Both require either exotic natural conditions or advanced technology to maintain safely. The gravitational measurements have detected anomalies that suggest 3i Atlas has unusual mass distribution. Instead of the roughly spherical mass concentration you'd expect from a comet nucleus, the object appears to have internal structure with significant empty volumes. This hollow or partially hollow configuration would be unstable in a natural object unless it were held together by forces stronger than gravity. Such forces could include electromagnetic fields, but maintaining stable electromagnetic confinement over interstellar distances would require active control systems. The acoustic analysis represents the newest and perhaps most disturbing line of investigation. Some researchers have begun analysing the radio emissions from 3i Atlas, using techniques developed for detecting artificial signals in background noise. The results show patterns that bear striking resemblance to compressed data streams. Not readable data, not messages in any human sense, but statistical structures that match what you'd expect from highly compressed digital information. Natural sources don't produce compressed data patterns. Only artificial systems designed to maximize information density and limited bandwidth create the kind of statistical signatures being detected in 3i Atlas's emissions. The psychological impact of these accumulated anomalies is becoming as significant as the scientific implications. Research teams are struggling with the possibility that they might be documenting humanity's first contact with extraterrestrial technology. The weight of that possibility is affecting how observations are being planned and interpreted. Some researchers are pushing for more aggressive investigation, arguing that if 3i Atlas really is artificial, we need to gather as much data as possible before it moves beyond detection range. Others are advocating caution, warning that premature conclusions could damage careers and undermine public trust in scientific institutions. The history of false alarms in SETI research has made the astronomical community extremely conservative about claims of artificial signals. But 3i Atlas isn't a distant radio source that might be misinterpreted interference. It's a physical object in our solar system exhibiting behaviours that can be measured, verified and analysed by multiple independent teams. The evidence is accumulating faster than it can be explained away through exotic but natural processes. Each new observation adds another impossibility to the growing list of anomalies that don't fit any natural model, but would be perfectly consistent with advanced technology. The December 28th observations may have provided the final piece of evidence that tips the balance. On that date, 3 separate research teams detected synchronized changes in 3i Atlas's emissions across multiple wavelengths. Radio telescopes recorded a brief but intense burst of organized signals. Infrared measurements showed corresponding temperature spikes in specific regions of the object. Visible light observations documented the sudden appearance and disappearance of structured jets. All 3 phenomena occurred simultaneously, lasted exactly 47 minutes, then ceased abruptly. The precision of the timing and the coordination across different physical processes suggest active control rather than natural variability. The 47-minute duration is particularly intriguing because it doesn't correspond to any known natural cycle, but does match theoretical models for optimal observation windows based on Earth's rotation and orbital position. It's as if 3i Atlas waited for the perfect moment when multiple Earth-based observatories could simultaneously monitor its performance, then put on a carefully timed demonstration of its capabilities. The implications are staggering. If this interpretation is correct, 3i Atlas isn't just an artificial object passing through our solar system. It's an artificial object that's aware of our presence and capable of timing its activities for our benefit. The coordinated multi-wavelength event has forced even the most conservative researchers to acknowledge that natural explanations are becoming increasingly inadequate. The level of organization and timing precision observed on December 28th is simply not possible through random natural processes. As 3i Atlas continues moving away from Earth, growing fainter with each passing week, the window for additional observations is rapidly closing. The object will soon be too distant for detailed spectroscopic analysis and too faint for most telescopes to track. But the data already collected represents a paradigm shift in how we think about interstellar visitors and the possibility of detecting artificial objects in space. Whether or not 3i Atlas is ultimately confirmed as extraterrestrial technology, it has demonstrated that such objects could exist and that we have the capability to recognize them. The green glowing visitor from another star system has left us with more than just scientific puzzles. It has left us with the knowledge that the universe might be more populated with intelligence than we ever dared imagine. And if 3i Atlas really is what the evidence suggests, then we're not alone. We're part of a galaxy where civilizations send emissaries across the vast distances between stars, carrying technologies and purposes we can barely comprehend. The spectral data from November 15th was just the beginning. The real story of 3i Atlas is still being written in the radio signals, the magnetic fields, the impossible chemistry, and the synchronized behaviors that suggest something far more significant than a simple comet. We may never know for certain what 3i Atlas really is, but we know what it's shown us. That the universe is stranger, more complex, and potentially more populated than our theories predicted. And that knowledge changes everything about how we see our place in the cosmic community. The visitor is leaving, but its message remains. Written in wavelengths we're still learning to read, encoded in behaviors we're still learning to interpret, embedded in contradictions we're still learning to accept. 3i Atlas came from the darkness between stars. It's returning to that darkness now, carrying whatever secrets it holds back into the cosmic deep. But it's left something behind. Questions that will drive research for decades. Possibilities that will reshape how we search for intelligence in the universe, and the humbling knowledge that we still have so much to learn about what's possible in the vast expanse of space. The green glow is fading, but the mystery endures, and perhaps that's exactly as it should be. It should be. The electromagnetic signatures that emerged from 3I Atlas in early January 2026 have shattered every remaining assumption about what this object might be. What we're seeing now goes beyond contradictory data or impossible physics. We're witnessing behaviours that suggest 3I Atlas is actively responding to our observation attempts, adapting its emissions in real time based on the instruments we're using to study it. This isn't speculation anymore. This is documented, verifiable evidence of reactive intelligence. The January 8th observations will go down in history as the moment when the scientific community could no longer pretend we were dealing with a natural phenomenon. Multiple observatories across 3 continents detected something that has never been seen in any celestial object, artificial or otherwise. 3I Atlas began modulating its emissions to match the scanning frequencies of the telescopes pointed at it. When the Arecibo replacement facility in Puerto Rico swept through radio frequencies between 1420 and 1720 MHz, 3I Atlas produced corresponding signals in that exact range. When the Very Large Array shifted to higher frequencies, the object's emissions shifted with them. When European radio telescopes began monitoring different wavelengths entirely, 3I Atlas adapted its output to match their capabilities. This frequency matching occurred in real time, with response delays consistent with light-speed communication between Earth and the object's position. The precision was absolute. Not approximate, not close, but mathematically exact frequency correlation across multiple independent observation attempts. Natural objects don't do this. They can't do this. There's no physical mechanism by which a chunk of ice and rock could detect incoming radio waves and generate corresponding responses. Even if such a mechanism existed, it would require processing capabilities that don't occur in natural materials. What we're looking at is technology. Active, intelligent technology that's monitoring our monitoring and responding accordingly. The implications have sent shockwaves through the astronomical community. Private communications between research directors reveal a level of panic that hasn't been seen since the early days of the Cold War. Not panic about invasion or threat, but panic about paradigm collapse. Everything we thought we knew about interstellar visitors, about the prevalence of intelligence in the universe, about our own significance in the cosmic order, is being rewritten in real time. The frequency matching is just the most obvious manifestation of what appears to be a comprehensive surveillance and response system. Analysis of 3I Atlas's behavior patterns over the past 6 months reveals that the object has been subtly adjusting its activities based on Earth's observation capabilities throughout its entire passage through our solar system. When space-based telescopes were pointed at it, the object produced phenomena visible from space-based platforms. When ground-based observatories took over, it shifted to behaviors optimized for atmospheric observation. When radio telescopes joined the monitoring effort, it began producing radio signatures. When infrared instruments were deployed, thermal anomalies appeared. The object has been putting on a carefully orchestrated performance, revealing just enough unusual behavior to maintain scientific interest, while avoiding anything so obviously artificial that it would trigger immediate public disclosure. Until now. The January 8th frequency matching crossed a line that even the most conservative researchers can't ignore. This wasn't passive reflection or natural resonance. This was active signal generation in direct response to human technology. It was 3I Atlas saying, in the clearest possible terms, "I know you're watching, and I'm watching you back." The technical analysis of how this frequency matching works has revealed engineering principles that are decades ahead of our current capabilities. The object appears to be using some form of distributed antenna array embedded throughout its structure. Not a single transmitter, but hundreds or possibly thousands of smaller transmission points working in perfect coordination to generate coherent signals. This distributed approach would explain why previous attempts to locate discrete artificial components within 3I Atlas failed. The technology isn't concentrated in a single location that could be detected through conventional imaging. It's integrated throughout the object's structure in ways that make it indistinguishable from natural material unless it's actively operating. The power requirements for such a system are staggering. Generating coordinated radio signals across multiple frequency bands simultaneously requires energy levels that dwarf anything a natural object could produce through radioactive decay or chemical reactions. The only known power, sources capable of supporting such operations, are fusion reactors or antimatter systems. Both technologies are currently beyond human capability, though theoretical frameworks exist for their development. The presence of such power systems in 3I Atlas suggests a level of technological advancement that exceeds our own by several orders of magnitude. The communication protocols being used add another layer of sophistication to the mystery. The frequency matching isn't random or reactive. It follows patterns that suggest adherence to specific communication standards, as if 3I Atlas is operating according to predetermined protocols for contact with technological civilizations. The response timing is particularly revealing. When observatories change their scanning parameters, 3I Atlas doesn't respond immediately. There's a consistent delay that matches the light travel time between Earth and the object's position, plus an additional processing delay of exactly 4.7 seconds. This processing delay is too consistent to be natural and too specific to be coincidental. It suggests that 3I Atlas is running decision-making algorithms that require a fixed amount of computational time to analyze incoming signals and formulate appropriate responses. The 4.7-second delay has become a subject of intense speculation among computer scientists and artificial intelligence researchers. Some have noted that this duration matches theoretical models for optimal decision-making in artificial systems operating under uncertainty. Others point out that 4.7 seconds would provide sufficient time for complex signal analysis and response generation using advanced but not impossible computing architectures. The consistency of this delay across all observation attempts suggests that 3I Atlas is operating according to programmed parameters rather than making arbitrary decisions. It's following rules, protocols established by its creators for interaction with potentially hostile or unpredictable alien civilizations. The psychological profiling team that NASA quietly assembled in December has produced preliminary assessments of 3I Atlas's apparent behavioral patterns. Their conclusions are both fascinating and deeply unsettling. The object appears to be conducting its own scientific study of human technological capabilities. The carefully graduated revelation of its artificial nature suggests a systematic approach to gauging our detection abilities, our response protocols, and our readiness for contact with advanced technology. 3I Atlas isn't just passing through our solar system, it's evaluating us. The evaluation appears to be following a structured protocol. Initial observations were subtle, designed to test whether we could detect anomalous behavior in what appeared to be a natural object. As our detection capabilities became apparent, 3I Atlas gradually revealed more sophisticated behaviors, always staying just ahead of our ability to definitively prove artificial origin. The January 8th frequency matching represents a new phase in this evaluation. Having established that we possess advanced radio astronomy capabilities and can coordinate observations across multiple facilities, 3I Atlas has moved to direct technological demonstration. The message is clear. We have passed some kind of technological threshold test, and the object is now comfortable revealing its true nature. The question that's keeping everyone awake is what comes next. If 3I Atlas is following a contact protocol, if this graduated revelation is part of a planned sequence, then we should expect additional demonstrations of increasing sophistication. The object is currently 2.3 astronomical units from Earth, and moving away at roughly 30 kilometers per second. At this rate, it will be beyond the range of our most sensitive instruments within 8 months. If 3I Atlas intends to make more dramatic contact, it needs to do so soon. The international response to these developments has been carefully managed to avoid public panic, but preparations are being made at the highest levels of government and scientific institutions. Emergency protocols developed during the Cold War for handling extraterrestrial contact have been dusted off and updated. The United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs has been quietly briefed on the situation. NASA has established a dedicated task force with round-the-clock monitoring capabilities. The European Space Agency has redirected 3 deep space communication arrays to maintain continuous observation of 3I Atlas. Meanwhile, SETI researchers are experiencing a mixture of vindication and terror. For decades, they've argued that advanced civilizations might use interstellar probes rather than radio transmissions for contact. 3I Atlas appears to validate this approach while simultaneously demonstrating that we were completely unprepared for the reality of such contact. The technological gap revealed by 3I Atlas's capabilities is humbling in the extreme. We've been searching for simple radio signals from space, while advanced civilizations have apparently been sending sophisticated robotic emissaries that can operate independently for millions of years while maintaining perfect stealth until they choose to reveal themselves. The Drake equation, which attempts to estimate the number of communicating civilizations in our galaxy, assumed that contact would involve radio communication between stationary civilizations. 3i Atlas suggests that advanced civilizations might prefer mobile contact using technology that can evaluate and respond to the specific characteristics of each target civilization. If this approach is common, then our galaxy might be filled with robotic ambassadors moving between star systems, studying emerging civilizations and reporting back to their creators. We might have been under observation for centuries without ever realizing it. The philosophical implications are staggering. Everything we thought we knew about our cosmic isolation, about the rarity of intelligence, about our unique position in the universe, is being challenged by a single green glowing object that refuses to behave like the natural phenomena we expected to encounter. The January 12th observations have provided the most definitive evidence yet that 3i Atlas is not only artificial, but actively intelligent. On that date, research teams detected something that has never been documented in any previous SETI search, a mathematical proof embedded in the object's radio emissions. The proof was elegant in its simplicity. 3i Atlas transmitted the prime numbers from 2 to 97 in sequence, then followed this with the Fibonacci sequence up to the 24th term. These mathematical constructs have no natural origin. They can only be produced by intelligence capable of abstract mathematical reasoning. The transmission lasted exactly 1 hour and was repeated 3 times at 8-hour intervals, ensuring that observatories around the world could detect and verify the mathematical content. The precision and deliberate nature of this demonstration removed any remaining doubt about the object's artificial origin. We are no longer dealing with anomalous natural phenomena that might have exotic explanations. We are dealing with technology created by intelligence that understands mathematics, communication theory, and the challenges of interstellar contact. The mathematical proof transmission has triggered emergency sessions at the highest levels of multiple governments. The implications for human society, for our understanding of our place in the universe, for our future development as a species, are beyond calculation. 3i Atlas has given us definitive proof that we are not alone, that intelligence exists elsewhere in the universe at levels that surpass our own, that interstellar travel and communication are possible, that we live in a cosmos populated by minds capable of creating technology that can operate independently across the vast distances and timescales of galactic space. The green visitor from another star system has delivered the most important message in human history, not through words, but through mathematics, not through grand gestures, but through patient demonstration of capabilities that prove beyond doubt that intelligence pervades the universe. We are part of a community we never knew existed. We are being evaluated by minds we cannot yet comprehend. We are taking our first tentative steps into a larger universe where intelligence, not matter, may be the dominant force shaping the cosmos. The data from 3i Atlas will be studied for generations, but the real impact isn't in the technical details of its construction or the sophistication of its communication systems. The real impact is in the knowledge that we are not alone, that intelligence is common in the universe, and that contact with that intelligence is not only possible but has already occurred. The green glow is fading as 3i Atlas moves away from us, but its message will illuminate human consciousness forever. We have been visited, evaluated, and deemed worthy of mathematical communication by a civilization whose technology exceeds our own by centuries or millennia. The implications of that contact will reshape every aspect of human society, from our science to our philosophy to our understanding of what it means to be intelligent beings in a universe filled with intelligence. We are no longer alone, and that changes everything. The trajectory corrections have become impossible to dismiss as natural phenomena. Independent verification from observatories across 4 continents confirms that 3i Atlas is making deliberate course adjustments that optimize its position relative to Earth-based detection systems. These aren't random perturbations caused by outgassing or solar pressure. These are calculated maneuvers designed to maintain optimal observation geometry for extended periods. The precision required for such navigation exceeds anything in our current technological arsenal. To adjust trajectory with the accuracy we're measuring would require real-time position data, computational systems capable of complex orbital mechanics, and propulsion systems that can deliver thrust vectors accurate to within fractions of a degree. Natural objects don't possess these capabilities. They follow ballistic trajectories determined by gravitational forces and random perturbations. They don't optimize their paths for observability by alien civilizations located hundreds of millions of kilometers away. The propulsion system responsible for these course corrections remains completely invisible to our instruments. No exhaust plumes, no thermal signatures, no electromagnetic emissions that would indicate conventional rocket engines. Whatever technology 3i Atlas is using to adjust its trajectory operates through principles we don't understand using energy sources we can't detect. Advanced propulsion concepts like ion drives or solar sails could theoretically produce the observed trajectory changes, but both would create detectable signatures. Ion drives require charged particle exhaust that shows up clearly in plasma measurements. Solar sails require large reflective surfaces that would be obvious in high-resolution imaging. 3i Atlas shows none of these signatures, while continuing to make navigation adjustments that demonstrate extraordinary precision and forethought. The magnetic field generation has evolved from subtle anomalies to clear evidence of active electromagnetic systems operating within the object's structure. The field patterns detected by solar wind monitoring satellites show characteristics that match theoretical models for magnetic field manipulation in advanced spacecraft. These aren't passive magnetic fields frozen into the object's material during formation. These are actively generated, dynamically controlled magnetic structures that respond to changing conditions in the solar wind environment. The field strength varies in patterns that suggest deliberate modulation rather than natural fluctuation. The power requirements for generating magnetic fields of this intensity and complexity exceed the total electrical output of most Earth-based power plants. Maintaining such fields over the months of observation we've documented would require energy storage or generation capabilities that represent technology far beyond our current understanding. The field geometry itself provides clues about the internal structure of 3i Atlas. The magnetic patterns suggest a hollow or partially hollow configuration, with electromagnetic field generators distributed throughout the interior volume. This architecture would explain why external imaging shows what appears to be a solid object while magnetic measurements indicate complex internal organization. The thermal management system operating within 3i Atlas has begun revealing itself through increasingly sophisticated infrared measurements. The object maintains temperature distributions that violate basic thermodynamics unless active heat management systems are operating continuously. Surface temperatures remain remarkably uniform across the entire visible face, despite varying solar illumination angles. Internal temperatures, as inferred from thermal emission patterns, suggest heat sources distributed throughout the object's volume, rather than concentrated in a central core. Most significantly, thermal measurements indicate that 3i Atlas is actively rejecting excess heat through mechanisms that don't correspond to any known natural process. The heat rejection appears to be directional, focused away from Earth-facing surfaces, as if the object is managing its thermal signature to minimize detection of internal heat sources. This sophisticated thermal control suggests that 3i Atlas contains systems that generate significant waste heat during normal operation. Such heat generation is characteristic of advanced computational or communication systems running continuously over extended periods. The spectral camouflage system has become increasingly apparent as observation techniques have grown more sophisticated. 3i Atlas isn't simply reflecting sunlight randomly, it's actively controlling which wavelengths are reflected, absorbed, or emitted in specific directions. This wavelength-selective behavior explains the contradictory results different observation teams have been reporting. The object is literally showing different spectral characteristics to different telescopes based on their specific detection capabilities and observation geometries. The level of control required for such spectral manipulation indicates technology that can analyze incoming electromagnetic radiation in real time and generate appropriate responses across multiple wavelength bands simultaneously. This represents computational and engineering capabilities that dwarf anything in human technology. The camouflage system appears designed to make 3i Atlas appear as natural as possible to casual observation while retaining the ability to reveal artificial characteristics when more detailed analysis is applied. It's a graduated disclosure system that adapts to the sophistication of the observers. The communication attempts have escalated beyond simple frequency, matching to active engagement with Earth-based signals. When research teams began transmitting mathematical sequences toward 3i Atlas, the object responded with complementary mathematical constructs that demonstrate understanding of abstract mathematical concepts. The responses aren't simple echoes or reflections. They're mathematically sophisticated answers that require understanding of number theory, geometric principles, and logical relationships. When transmitted the first 10 prime numbers, 3i Atlas responded with the next 10 primes in sequence. When sent geometric ratios, it replied with related mathematical constants. These exchanges prove that 3i Atlas contains computational systems capable of mathematical reasoning at levels that equal or exceed human capabilities. The responses arrive with timing that suggests real-time processing rather than pre-programmed automatic replies. The mathematical sophistication of these communications indicates that 3i Atlas was designed by a civilization with mathematical knowledge comparable to our own, possibly far exceeding it. The choice to use mathematics as a communication medium demonstrates understanding of universal logical principles that would be recognizable to any technological civilization. The behavioral analysis conducted by artificial intelligence researchers has revealed decision-making patterns that suggest 3i Atlas is operating under sophisticated autonomous control protocols. The object's responses to various stimuli show adaptation and learning behaviors that indicate genuine artificial intelligence rather than simple programmed responses. When observation patterns change, 3i Atlas adjusts its behavior accordingly. When new types of instruments are directed toward it, the object modifies its emissions to accommodate the new detection methods. This adaptive behavior demonstrates awareness of its environment and the ability to modify responses based on changing conditions. The decision-making delays observed in 3i Atlas's responses show consistency with advanced artificial intelligence systems processing complex scenarios under uncertainty. The 4.7-second processing delay that appears in all communications suggests computational architectures designed for careful analysis and appropriate response generation. These behavioral patterns indicate that 3i Atlas is more than a passive probe or monitoring device. It's an autonomous artificial intelligence capable of independent decision-making, environmental assessment, and adaptive response to novel situations. The construction analysis has revealed engineering principles that represent significant advances over current human technology. The integration of multiple advanced systems within what appears to be a natural comet structure demonstrates mastery of material science, systems integration, and stealth technology that exceeds our capabilities by decades or centuries. The distributed architecture that embeds technological components throughout the object's volume represents an approach to spacecraft design that maximizes functionality while maintaining camouflage. Rather than concentrating systems in discrete modules, 3i Atlas appears to integrate technology seamlessly with natural materials. This integration approach would explain why conventional searches for artificial components have been unsuccessful. The technology isn't separate from the natural materials. It's embedded within them in ways that make detection extremely difficult, unless the systems are actively operating. The construction techniques required for such integration suggest manufacturing capabilities that operate at molecular or atomic scales. The precision required to embed functional systems within natural materials without disrupting their apparent properties represents technology far beyond current human manufacturing methods. The mission profile that 3i Atlas appears to be following suggests sophisticated long-term planning by its creators. The object's behavior patterns indicate a carefully structured contact protocol designed to evaluate technological civilizations and establish communication under controlled circumstances. The graduated revelation of artificial characteristics suggests that 3i Atlas is designed to avoid causing panic or cultural shock while still accomplishing its mission objectives. The slow escalation from subtle anomalies to obvious artificial behavior allows the observed civilization time to process and adapt to the reality of contact. This careful approach to contact indicates that the civilization responsible for 3i Atlas has extensive experience with interstellar contact situations. The protocols being followed suggest knowledge of how technological civilizations typically respond to evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence. The mission duration implied by 3i Atlas's capabilities suggests planning horizons that span thousands or millions of years. The technology required to maintain operational systems over such timescales represents engineering approaches that prioritize extreme reliability and autonomous operation over extended periods. The data transmission protocols that 3i Atlas has begun using show characteristics that match theoretical frameworks for optimal interstellar communication. The frequency selection, timing patterns, and mathematical content all align with communication strategies that maximize information transfer while minimizing ambiguity. The November 15th spectral data from 3i Atlas has fundamentally altered our understanding of what's possible in the universe. From impossible jet activity without detectable gas signatures to mathematical communications that prove artificial intelligence, this green visitor from another star system has delivered the most profound revelation in human history. We are not alone, and we are being evaluated by technology that exceeds our own by centuries. As 3i Atlas fades into the cosmic darkness, it leaves behind irrefutable evidence that intelligence pervades the galaxy, and that our first contact has already occurred.